say to you that wherever you're joining us from, get ready for something special today. My name is Chigozie George, and I'm your host again today. And I know it's going to be a very, very wonderful day. So I look forward to having this conversation and hosting you today. So wherever you're joining us from, good morning, and you're super, super welcome. Good morning, and you are super, super welcome. So let's get straight into the conversation. But before I do that, we're just trying to make sure that you can hear us. And if you can just let us know that you can hear us and that everything is clear and set and that you can see us clearly. Last week, we had a couple of issues and people couldn't hear us clearly. People couldn't see us. But so I'm sure it's different today. People can hear us, people can see us. So one more time, you're very much welcome. For those who are joining in, to be, please remember that you're very much welcome to join in on the stream here. But we cannot open your videos, you cannot, but you can make comments. I'm opening the private chat. You can send in questions, and I'm gonna ask Ambassador Lamin Sherrif. So let me quickly welcome one of the most interesting people that I have had conversation with in a very, very long time. And I'm happy to have him on this show today. So please welcome with me, Mr. Lamin Sherrif. Like I said, is a diplomat with the Sierra Leone embassy at Ankara here in Turkey. So I'm going to let him just take a moment to talk about himself and introduce himself better than I could do. You're very much welcome, sir.
Thank you very much, my brother and my friend. It is an honor. I take this personally, I don't take it for granted, for us to have a conversation on a plethora of issues, not just surrounding ourselves, but governance in Africa, in Europe, in Turkey, and the world at large. As you rightly said, I am Lamin Sherrif. I am presently the information attache at the Sierra Leone Embassy in Ankara, Turkey. I am a communications specialist. I am a writer. I am a motivational speaker. I am a coach. And above all, I am an African. Thank you very much. And I have been looking forward to this day. And as you rightly said, the conversation is going to be interesting. It is going to be amplifying. It's it's it will it would, and I say, unveil a lot of issues, a lot of interesting conversations. So thank you very much, and let's get the conversation going.
Yes, like you said, let's get it going. Let's get it going. So, people, keep sharing, keep inviting someone to watch and tune in the conversation. You've got a lot to learn, so I invite you to keep sharing. Invite someone on Facebook. If it's live on Facebook, it's live on Instagram. Please invite someone and let's get on, like you said, with the conversation. Okay, I want to start with you have done pretty well with yourself. I have looked at where you came from. You told me a little bit of your story and how you have been able to rise from the top. Can you tell us what's the thing that we can learn from your story and how to rise from the top? Just like any other young person, any other young lady who's listening to us today, who's listening to you today, what are the things that you have learned that help people to rise to the top?
Well, just as in many of our conversations, I have often said, and I will reiterate, you know, success in life depends on not your education, but
Mm-hmm.
the people you meet, the people you encounter. I have told people this that there is power in collaboration.
Hmm.
There is power in believing in somebody.
Hmm.
There is power in being a mentee.
Hmm.
This is the gateway to the world. This will take you to places. This will expose your life. And this will unfold the true meaning of your existence and to help you achieve them. So, in a short while, I am a politically exposed person.
Hmm.
I am happy and very privileged to have associated myself as a politician, as young as it was, and as young as it is. That's I attended the Frabi College, University of Sierra Leone, one of the oldest in West Africa. In fact, it is being regarded as the anthem of West Africa. People from all over West Africa used to come to this place for higher education. I went there to study mass communication, and I studied mass communication. So it was during that process that I and a set of people we encountered a brother, a mentor, whose help, whose ambition, and whose vision for young people has led us to where we are today.
Hmm.
So my journey in life to where I have been today, I will not say it's a blessing because
Hmm.
every man born is blessed with the gift of life,
Hmm.
right? I will not say it's hard work because there are people even more doing more and hard work than I have ever done. I will
Hmm.
not say so. What I will say about my spring is alignment.
Hmm.
Is
Okay.
alignment. How you can see somebody, you believe in his dream, you believe in his vision. And when that dream, when that vision is translated, you also will be a beneficiary to it.
Hmm.
So in the early days, we met, set of us, myself and my guys, we met somebody that has truly changed our life, that
Hmm.
has truly disciplined us, that has truly given us the ability to discover what is our existence on earth and how to pursue it
Hmm.
by the person of the current president of Sierra Leone, Julius Maada Bio. You may
Hmm.
have heard about him in terms of youth empowerment. I have seen him give cabinet position to young people. He has empowered a lot of people. But the bottom line to where I am today is alignment, how very well I aligned myself with his vision, with his dream, with his ambition, and with his aspiration.
Hmm. So, if I get you right, it's important that one, we find mentors.
Yes, sir.
Mentors are important.
They
And
are
not just that
definitely.
you find mentors, you find people that you can align with their vision.
Yes, sir.
So, what is the process of finding the mentor? How do you decide this is the person that should mentor me? This is the person that I ought to align my personal visions to his personal vision, my personal ambitions to his personal ambition. How do you decide that?
It is wisdom.
Hmm.
It is wisdom, I must tell you. Because there is an African adage that says you can tell a ripe corn by its look.
Okay.
So, in my own case, in my own instance, I saw a man in President Julius Maada Bio as an by then he was a young man, very industrious. He served in the military, and the military takeover. They led military intervention in order to restore the dignity, the pride of Sierra Leone. When they led that intervention, he was not at the fore, he was not at the front. He was also a proponent. He believed in somebody. He was a proponent to the cause. And now it came to pass in those days when the military took over. from the civil regime because they thought that regime was not good for the ordinary Sierra Leonean when they took over.
Okay.
There was a plan for them to have organized and return that regime to a civilian government,
Okay.
right? And after a while, he did not see this thing happen. He did not see this thing happen. He took upon himself and he took over power from his former boss. When he took over power from him, he told him, our cause was to restore democracy. We have not. So I am taking this power. I am making arrangement for a restoration of democracy. And he did that. He called for election. After the election, he handed over power. And what he did for himself, he left the shores of Sierra Leone for the United States, where he could study, where he could empower himself, where he could learn leadership to come again and take the power of mantle of leadership in a democratic manner.
Okay.
So after all what he did, the processes that led to the transfer of power, he went to America, he studied, and he came on ground to be elected democratically.
Okay.
That action of his propelled me and many young people, and we joined his cause. We joined the trail. He called young people. He canvassed young people to believe in him, to believe in his dream, in his vision, to transform not only the Sierra Leone that we want, but the Africa that every Sierra Leonean will be proud of.
So
So that's how,
if I'm sorry to cut you short. You said he canvassed, he spoke to young people, he appealed to young people. If I get you right,
yes,
he,
sir,
in the process of attempting to mentor young people, he did not shove it down your throat and say, this is what I want us to. He appealed to you. He canvassed young people and said, come on board. Is that what you're trying to say?
definitely. And if I should add to what you have asked, he called on a coalition of the willing, those who are willing,
Coalition of the willing.
coalition of the willing. He brought together those who believe in his cause, who are willing, not through coercion, because he was not militant again. He came
Mhm,
in a civil manner to
mhm.
contest for election. He did so in 2012. After the conduct of the 2012 election, the Electoral Commissioner pronounced Dr. Anes by Koroma as the winner. He did not create havoc again, and he went to the UK to study, to further his studied. So he resurfaced in the politics again in 2015, 16, 17, leading to 2018 election with the same campaign message: youth empowerment, education, opportunity for not just selected people, but an opportunity for all. And we are compelled again by our convictions, not through question. And we
Hmm.
joined him. And behold, he won the 2018 election.
That's after how many years he left for America?
He left America in 2006. He handed over power.
Okay.
In 1996, they took power. In 1996, they took power.
Okay.
He gave power. So it took him like 20 to 23 years to prepare himself for this leadership.
Hmm.
In 2000, there was a peaceful transfer of power. A peaceful transfer of power from the military rule to the late president uh, of blessed memory, Dr. Tijan Kaba.
Okay.
Tijan Kaba ruled for 10 years
Okay. Hmm.
and there was election. He came did not succeed at the initial stage. He returned to further his studies, this time not in the America, but in the United Kingdom.
Okay.
So he won the election in 2018. He has called, he has transformed, he has exposed many young people. He has shaped the lives of many young people.
Okay, let me quickly. You have been emphasizing on young people, young people, young people. Let's go back to what we briefly had a conversation about before the conversation started proper. We spoke about the current president of Senegal. You are in politics. How does that affect? What do you see that will be the impact of his presidency, not just on Senegal, but on Africa? African politics, African leadership, and global leadership. He's 44 years old, I understand. I don't have very much knowledge about his background. I think for me, relatively, he's new to me, but you might have an idea of who he is. What do you think we as African, ordinary Senegalese should expect will be the impact of his presidency on a continent and as the country of Senegal?
At first, I will tell you his presidency is an eye opener,
Okay,
that nothing is impossible,
okay,
that age is not a barrier, that intimidation is not a barrier. I am mentioning age because he is one of the youngest presidents to have been elected through the ballot in Africa.
hmm,
He became president on his 44th birthday. That was his birthday gift.
hmm,
I was telling you about alignment. I was telling you about mentee and mentor relationship.
hmm.
Not every, he was not a popular figure outside Senegal, I must tell you.
Yes,
He has been supporting, he has been promoting, he has been a proponent of somebody he believed in. He was a voice, he added a voice to that individual that led them to be in prison.
okay,
So his former mentor, who could not qualify because of a court case, supported him, showed
hmm,
him the way,
hmm.
showed him to people. So I told you it's alignment, it's mentee and mentor relationship.
So, mentors, if I get you right, mentors must also be people that show you the way so that you can even rise above them in the places they themselves cannot rise.
That is the definition of a mentor. You have just said it.
So, do you think that this current president of Senegal has the capacity to lift every other young person to rise above him? I do not know how much we can rise. All of us cannot be presidents. All of us, there are millions of Senegalese. All of them cannot be president. What can he do to at least help people across Senegal, across Africa, raise hope? What can he do to make us have more hope in us in Africa, in our leaders?
So before I come here, I must tell you that a mentor is a kingmaker.
Hmm.
A mentor makes king. So if I'm not the king, I make king. If I'm not the president, I mentor somebody to be president,
Presidents.
or my sons will be president, or my lineage will be. That is the truer meaning of mentorship.
Hmm.
Now back to the question. He should lead. He should have a central focus, believe in his dream and his vision, because every humans we have laid down our vision and we work
Mhm.
towards it.
Yeah.
When he works towards that vision that is in the good interest of the people, He is not only doing justice to himself, nor Senegal, he is doing justice to the African continent. As I told you prior, that this is an eye opener. Because it's an eye opener, we are now looking up to him for leadership examples, to govern well, to obey the rule of law and the constitution, and above all, to lead in the interests of those people who elected him, bearing in mind that he is a president now for those who voted him and those who did not vote him in. He's president for that. So he has now, as young as he is, the cosmic responsibility to unify the country for one single purpose. But even more so, that purpose will be translated into the dreams, into the vision of other African young emerging leaders.
Mhm. Just before we continue, next week I'll be talking with another, for those online, just to digress. Next week I'll be talking to another emerging young leader from Congo, and it's quite inspiring what he also is doing. I'm sure he has got a lot to also learn from people like you. But I want to quickly move into something. You have been in Turkey for some number of years now,
Yes, sir.
and you've seen Turkey, progress. You've seen Turkey emerge and continue to emerge and demand its place among the superpowers of the nations. Now, what do you think, or where do you see Turkey going in the next 10, 20 years in terms of becoming a superpower among the nations? Just as you've heard the statement that the world is bigger than five. What do you think it will be the place of Turkey in the next 10, 20 years?
So I want to tell you that Turkey plays and continues to play a significant role in addressing global issues due to its strategic location, its regional influence, and diplomatic engagement. Right?
Yes.
In terms of their geographical positioning, it is a crossroad to Europe, Asia, and the Middle East, and it gives them a unique advantage point to engage with various regions to act as a bridge.
Hmm.
Act as a bridge. For instance, we saw the role the president of Turkey, His Excellency Erdogan, did in mediating the conflict between Ukraine and Russia.
Hmm.
He went there, he called the two parties to come together to reason. The effort was not individualistic. By this I mean, him alone cannot solve it,
Hmm.
but taking upon himself leading, I think it is commendable to foster dialogue and to promote stability between Russia and Ukraine. We know Turkey is a member of NATO and a candidate of the European Union. Turkey has participated in diplomatic effort to solve international conflicts. I must tell you, for example, they have involved in peace talks in the Middle East and even in North Africa. Turkey is investing in Africa
Hmm.
as part of their diplomatic efforts in unifying Africa, but not only unifying Africa, but also helping Africa to, to compete, if not absolutely, but to compete with other European nations and other countries in America.
Let me come in and ask a little question there. I understand Turkey is invested in Africa. I understand people also say, when Americans say America is investing in Africa, I understand when the Chinese say China is investing in Africa. I understand when France says France is investing in Africa. And one of the things I understand is everybody will always do something for their own interests. Do you think, I know from time immemorial, when the global superpowers go to Africa to do anything, it's never been for the interest of Africa and Africans. It's never been. The evidences are there. When they are in Congo, it's never been for the benefit of the Congolese. When they are in Nigeria, it's never been for the benefit of Nigeria. Do you think that Turkiye will become another superpower in Africa for the benefit of Turkey, or do you think that in for the mutual benefit, mutual relationship, mutual development, and do you think that there's going to be any difference in our relationship with them compared to the relationship with other superpowers we've seen?
So I may tell you, just as you stated, there is no free lunch.
Mm-hmm.
Turkey is using Africa as a springboard for their future endeavors.
Okay.
15 years ago, not many people knew Turkey.
Okay.
15 years ago, only a handful of people around the globe can identify Turkey as a destination.
Okay.
They, through diplomacy, through engagement, the last 15 years, we have seen the emergence of Turkey in the global stage.
Mm-hmm.
It may interest you to know, as a member of NATO, Turkey is very influential
It's true.
in NATO.
Very true.
Turkey is a military country. They have made their presence felt in NATO. But their engagement in Africa is a win-win situation, as you rightly said.
Okay.
You and I know Africa is very resourceful.
Mm-hmm.
So w- they are expanding their trade relation.
Okay.
They are expanding their military relation. They are expanding their educational relation. They are expanding their agricultural relation. Because you've lived in Turkey, you are living in Turkey. You
Mm-hmm.
know Turkey, they eat what they grow.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, anything that is not made in Turkey is more than 18% tax on it.
Okay.
So the presence of Turkey on the African continent, on the good aspect, may help us in terms of food.
Okay.
They can help us if we want to be food sufficient.
Okay.
In fact, in military aid, Turkey is giving military aid to many countries.
Okay. Not just African countries.
Well, I am for the purposes of this discourse, I am saying the African continent because I am aware of what they are doing on the African continent.
Okay.
Their trade volume in Africa worth billions of dollars.
Okay.
There are fewer countries in Africa that do not have representation, diplomatic representation in Turkey. To name but a few, like Liberia. But to many of those countries you think about, they are here, they are fostering trade and development. But in
Okay.
my country, the president, His Excellency Julius Maada Bio, saw the need for a new airport, not only a new one, but a modernized one, or better still, a standardized one.
Okay.
And you have seen the Istanbul airport. You have seen the Istanbul airport.
Okay.
It is not the same, but it's may be considered as a replica as what is in my country, right? Though it is
Please go on, sir.
it is operating on BOT, build, operate, and transfer. But forever and ever, the edifice remains the property of Sierra Leone. They have also done so in Senegal, in other parts of Africa. So I am confident that the relationship of Turkey in Africa is a win-win situation, promote trade, investment, education, agriculture, and so on and so forth.
It's a good thing when I hear that it's a balanced relationship. I did mention to you, I listen to Professor Lumumbu a lot. I mentioned that to you in our earlier conversation when he presented a talk on Africa on the dinner table, and he mentioned that when superpowers gather at the dinner table, Africa is the meal that everybody eats from. you know how does that make me or you as an African feel? Because it seems to me that that's largely the truth, that everybody wants to largely take from Africa. Africa is more like a land of raw material. So it's like a land of raw materials. It's like a place where you just take from and give back and never really give back. How can we change that perspective as Africans? How can we change that stereotyping so that when we get in the next few years, when we get to the dinner table, we can sit and eat and not be eaten.
So, Professor Lumumba, contrary to my orientation, I am not saying he is wrong. He's a Pan-Africanist.
Okay.
He preaches only Africanism,
Okay.
whereas I preach Africanism, but also with the idea that the world, no country or continent works in silo.
True.
The West, they need something from Africa. We also need something from Africa.
Okay.
There is no gainsaying. No man is an island.
Sure.
I have followed him. I listened his conversation, particularly when he coined Africa on the dining table. So he said, he proposed and he pinned that instead of Africans truly utilizing what is in Africa, so to speak, like we have sold our birthright.
Okay.
But I must tell you, in all of what he preached or he's preaching, he knows within himself that if Africa is to see development, we need to protect our territorial integrity, that is sure,
True.
but we need an alignment that is fit for purpose, an alignment that tomorrow our children's children will be proud of.
Alignment with, let me understand, I see that you are a full supporter of alignment. I
Yes, sir.
also believe that nothing great survives alone. I
Yes,
believe
sir.
nothing great survives alone. You believe in alignment. So we are in agreement that of the need to build and foster relationships that are mutually beneficial. So my question is, these alignment, don't you think our progress as human beings, or let's go to African system first, our progress as Africans will be very visible and will be faster if we learn to align first internally with ourselves as Africans. I do not know how easy it is to travel from my country to your country, but I guess it's almost the same price to move from your country by flight and to move to Turkey. It's almost the same flight, the same cost to move from my country to Turkey, my country to London, and as it is the same price to move from my country to Ghana, which is just about an hour plus away from me. So, my question is that alignment, don't you think it will be easier if we and you all, as leaders of the continent, align first with ourselves before we begin to seek the other international alignments? I think Europeans align first with Europeans, then they align with Africans when interests align.
So when I say alignment, I keep saying alignment. I'm a, I'm a proponent, idea promoter of the one alignment. Alignment itself has got variables in achieving alignment. There are variables in achieving alignment. I have not said there is no need for Africa to come together,
Okay.
even when we come together. But again, there are forces in humanity, there are forces in the world that will always prevent 100% alignment.
Okay. That's true.
When I say we should come together as African on the continent, when we are a people, when we are a people, right? When we
Hmm.
see ourselves as one, then we can align with the Western powers to make
Okay.
Africa a better place. Let me give you an illustration of this. In Africa, we belong to various organizations. The ECOWAS, we have they have these in the EEC, like those in East Africa. We have Francophone, we have Anglophone,
Hmm.
and we have those from the Portuguese country. We have these alignments. Don't forget, back in the days of colonialism, when we gained independence, colonial masters, they left Africa,
Hmm.
but it was not in entirety. They left Africa in theory. In practically, they are
Yes.
still in Africa.
Yes.
I have not disputed that fact because Kwame Nkrumah at independence in Ghana, he said the true meaning of independence for Africa is for Africans to come together. He said, I have not identified a place. I don't have any place in common, but I think that Africans, we should have a single currency.
Hmm.
I think Africa, we should have a single capital city.
Okay.
He was not saying there should not be currencies in other African countries. He was
Hmm.
not saying there should not be, he was talking about unity of purpose.
Okay.
We should come together. I am not disputing that fact. Even if the world is Africa is a unified force, we cannot work in silo.
Yes. That is
We,
true.
we can never work in silo. I am a fervent believer that as Africans, yes, of course, we should try as hard as possible to be our brother's keeper. I believe that our first point of contact is Africa, to trade between Africa. I believe so.
Okay.
But there are forces, I told you, that the colonial masters, they left in theory, but it wasn't in practical. And I am of the belief that the Europeans will not just come to Africa to exploit us. They dare not.
You think,
As I'm coming, my brother. As Oberika said in Things Fall Apart, he said, and I quote, does the white man understand our customs about land? He said, how can he, when he do not even speak our tongue? He knows not our culture. How
hmm,
can he? He said, but the white man is very clever.
yes.
When he came, he held our own brothers. Our brothers who know our tradition, who knows
Mhm.
our brothers who know our custom,
Yes.
who understand how the dynamics work in Africa.
Hmm.
When the white man came, he had conversation he held with them. And now our clan can no longer act like one. He said, he has put in a knife on the things that held us
held
together,
us
and
together.
we have fallen apart.
But
And there, he went further in things fall apart when they said they were to drive the white man from Africa. And Oberika said, we are driving the white man from Africa. What of our own brothers who has been indoctrinated, who has been westernized, who is undermining the security of Africa?
so
If we drive,
you
if we drive the white man, and we leave our brothers who think like the white man, who has no patriotic mindset, what difference does it make? The white man cannot just come. The Europeans cannot just come. They are passing through systems. I
systems
don't think
created by who? Who are the people that created the systems that continue to exploit Africa? Now, I do agree with you in totality. There are a lot of people, just as in every country. Listen, I'm sorry to say that, please, but the truth is, there are a lot of people in every country, in your country, there are people who will undermine your progress as a country for their selfish benefit, party benefit. In Nigeria, there are people who, for their selfish interest, will undermine the progress of the country for the benefit of themselves and their parties. In the US, there are people who will undermine the progress of America for the benefit of themselves and their parties. But how do we, can we say that because of that, that we will not attempt to move forward? How do we still come together? How do we find a way to make sure that in every conversation, in every negotiation, the idea of us first comes in play? There will always be this sort of people there who will undermine the system.
the only way we can put an end to it, I said the only way we can put an end to that menace in Africa
Hmm.
is to minimize aids, grants, is to
Hmm.
minimize them in
Okay.
every form. When Oberika said the white man came to our country, he leaned on our own brothers. Let me tell you how the colonialism is still in Africa. Through aid, they will come in different aspects.
Hmm.
And now they are so much diplomatic, they are bringing it in the form of education.
Hmm.
They are giving scholarship to our brothers who want to study in Cambridge, in Massachusetts, who wants to study in Harvard. They are westernizing them. They are indoctrinating them. And when these donors, when these grants, when they come, they follow it. They follow it. Sometimes there are positions at the World Bank, at the IMF, there are some positions, the recommendations are from their headquarters. Though they are our own brothers, but they are enemies of the state.
Hmm.
They sit in cabinet, not patriotic to the country, right? They leak information to the whites. That is it. The white man, the Europeans have not just come to Freetown, to Accra, to Lagos, to Yaoundé, to Djibouti, as the case may be. They come through this process through our own brothers in the name of AIDS, grants, education, scholarship. We have so be brainwashed that we say the best law school in the world is Harvard. Is Harvard the best law school in the world for Nigeria, for Sierra Leone, for Ghana? Harvard is the best law school for America. But we have so brainwashed. Our brothers are going there to be educated, buying their own ideas, buying houses overseas, having dual citizenship, Maybe in many occasions, I have not seen any leader in Africa who will come and say, I am coming to exploit my people. I have not seen a democratic leader coming to say, I am coming to wage suffering on my people. You cannot work alone. You are coming to work with systems, procedures. You cannot bypass them. Policies, after they have been discussed in cabinet, they don't become a law until they go through parliament. The white man is not going to sit in our parliament. It is our brothers and sisters who will sit in our parliament, who are seeing laws that are meant for purpose. They will not implement them. They go against the will of the people. It is not the white man.
Let, let, let,
Even if the white man might have bribed them, it is left to you to accept bribe.
can I quickly point out something there? You can't consistently use the word white man, white man, white man. Permit me to say that that's a social conversation, and I have often said there is no white man. No one is white. And I wish to say, for the purpose of this conversation and on this every time, no one is white. I once had a student who walked up to me and said, "Why are you so black?" And I said, "What's your color?" And she said, "I'm white." And I lifted up a white paper and I said, "Is this your color?" And she said, "No." I said, "So why do you think you're white?" I think the idea of referring to us as black and another group as white is a social divide that tends to make one group of people better and the other group of people not better. There's nobody white, and I look at people. Most people that they refer to as black are not black. They have other shades of colors. So I think, for the purpose of this conversation, that we will rather not refer to anybody as white. Europeans are Europeans. Americans are Americans. Indians are Indians. The Chinese are the Chinese. Africans are Africans. I hope you would agree with me on that, sir.
I will agree with you on the purposes of this conversation because the sad reality is that for the purpose of this conversation, there is no white man, there is
Yes.
no black man, as you rightly said. But there is black man. We have been
I okay.
as a black people, and we have accepted that. We have accepted we are black
Can we
people.
not
We have
unaccept?
accepted that they
Can
are
we
white
not
people.
unaccept it? Can
But
we
as
not
you rightly said,
unaccept it?
for the purposes of this conversation, there is no black man. Let me say now the Europeans who
Good.
come, the Americans who come to our country, they are not just coming in hiding. They are coming through legal means. They are coming through our brothers. They are coming through our system, our sisters. So Africans should first hold the aspect of being patriotic to the country and to the continent. Let us trade among ourselves.
Good.
I tell you for free, I refer to as Fabe College as the anthem of West Africa. Many people from Nigeria, many people from Anglophone Africa used to come to Sierra Leone for education. But even ourselves who studied in Sierra Leone, we want to go to European nations on that aspect. Our lecturers are not lecturing us, giving us idea based on the African continent.
True.
When we have economics class, we are being told of Adam Smith, we are being told about Thomas Jefferson. Those ideas, we have not discussed literature in an African context. We have not
Mm-hmm.
discussed mathematics in an African context. We have not discussed economics in an African context.
True.
My brother, the problem lies with ourselves. The
Can I
problem
quick
lies with ourselves. I
can
must
I
tell you, and I
quickly
will say
can I
it
quickly
at
comment
every
some?
given point in time. In as much as we want to compete with the Europeans, we want to align, but we should first align ourselves. with the continent. We should trade first and foremost with ourselves. We should educate ourselves. I look up to that day when, in an African conversation as we are having, we will be able to speak to ourselves and understand in an African accepted tribe or language and not the English language we are using.
You know, you
We look
know,
forward for that day.
can
But
I?
because that is far from fetch, we have to accept that if we should develop, yes, we have to come together,
Mm-hmm,
but we should also work together with other world bodies, with other
mm-hmm.
countries, in order to fully actualize our purpose of existence and to actualize our potentials as Africans on the continent.
I must say that oftentimes I try to come into to because you make so many points that I want to show, to an extent, show my how in agreement I am with you. You know, it is important, like you said, when we discuss issues in Africa, in our education system, it's important that we use people that our people can relate with. I give you an example. A couple of years ago, I was in a management class in my university in Nigeria. It was an education management class. And my lecturer said something. He said, Socrates said, Aristotle said, he kept mentioning, and I raised my hand, and I was like, sir, all of these people said and said and said. What have our people said concerning this topic you are discussing? Because I want to understand how what I am learning applies to my system. That's what you're saying, right? We need to use names, examples that apply to our system. If I'm correct, that's what you're saying, right? Hello? I lost him there. Can you hear me, sir? Oh, just hold on. I'm gonna get in touch with him back. Thank you so much for your patience. We are really, really. Can you hear me now?
I can hear you, my brother.
Okay, good. Just before the line went off, I was saying that I don't know if you understood that part. I was saying that a couple of years ago, I was in a management class, education class, and the professor said something that Aristotle said, Socrates said. He quoted so many of these people, Greek philosophers around Europe and America, and I asked a question. I said, "What has what have our professors said? The people that are educated in our system, the people we look up to, the Kwame Nkrumahs, the Tafel Balewas, the Zeeks, the Obasan, all of these people that have led us over the years, what have they said concerning these things? Our own educated system, what have the people who shaped our education system said? And that's the same thing. I work here in the Turkish education system. And I often tell the people around me, I said, when you give examples, don't say to somebody, you're trying to make a sentence, don't say Johnson said, say Mehmet said. They said, why? I said, because you want it to relate to your people. You want to bring it home to your people. So, how can we change the African education system to reflect what we want our people to learn, to reflect what the patriotism we want our people to pick up? How do we do that, sir?
We need to reinvent the wheel. We need to complement the assertion of Kwame Nkrumah on that day of Ghanaian independence when he
Mm-hmm.
said we should be a united force. We should trade first within ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
We should rely on our educational system. We should rely on the African economy. We should work towards boosting the African economy. I told you about alignment. The first alignment I was mentioning was alignment with ourselves, peace with
Good.
ourselves,
Mm-hmm.
cooperation with ourselves,
Mm-hmm.
being energized, being
Mm-hmm.
spirited for the
Mm-hmm.
common African agenda. The menace is that for far too long, I'm telling you, for far too long, We have so much relied on aid that even our educational system will rely on scholarship.
Hmm.
You know, if the Turkish government grants scholarship to Africans, to any nationality, when you come, the first thing you will do, you study their language for 1 year.
Yeah.
And studying their language for 1 year, you are going to they will make you speak their language. You speak the language fluently.
Mm-hmm.
You speak the language fluently. How many of us from Nigeria, from Sierra Leone, from Gambia have gone to study in Kenya and we have efficiently learned the Swahili, the Kiswahili? How many of us will go and study in Nigeria and study the Yoruba, the Igbo? But when we come here, we will learn their language and their culture.
Mm-hmm.
The Chinese, no exception, right?
Yes.
Let us begin at the basis, discovering the true meaning of our existence, enhancing the camaraderie that we can achieve all things in Africa. We can be educated right through in America, in Africa. That's if we come together, we can we can fight any forces against us not to enhance and feed ourselves through agriculture. We have the land, the fertile land. We can work towards feeding ourselves. You know, there are a few African leaders presently in government that I admire for one or two stands they have taken. One, my area of my priority is His Excellency President Julius Maada Bio of Sierra Leone. During his first term of office, he prioritized education because it is only through education that you are enlightened. It is only
Mm-hmm.
through education that I have this mindset that Africa is always my home. There can be no better place than Africa, my birthplace. It is only through education that I can say, let us feed ourselves as Africans. Let us come together for a common purpose. It is through education. So when he came, he said, from primary to high school, free education in all government and government assisted schools. If you
Hmm.
want, you can send your school, your children to private school. But once you are in government or government assisted, it's free education.
Hmm.
And again, after he won the second term, he said, I have an initiative. I am spending the largest part of my national budget on agriculture, just as I did in education.
Hmm.
Let me tell you, when you invest in education, it takes years for you to actually
Yes.
gain from that sacrifice.
Yes.
From my class, from my nursery, it was only after 10 years that I was able to write and interpret letters for my family members who spent a lot of resources for me to be educated. So it takes a long time to invest in that and to utilize it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Again, we are talking about feed Sierra Leone. We want to feed ourselves. We've got the land. We are investing in agriculture, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if we can achieve those things, and in terms of continuation, we continue on that path, we will reduce the burden of exportation on rice and other commodities that should be made in Sierra Leone.
Mm-hmm.
I admire again the president of Ghana. He has pledged One district, one factory. One
Hmm.
district, one factory. One district, one factory. If he succeeds in that vein and continuation, successive governments continues on that path, it is but a righteous and a good fight that should be followed. Third again is Paul Kagame. I don't need to tell you about his um, his developmental strives in the infrastructure. So if we have African leaders following suit, inculcating the true spirit, true meaning of Africanism, Africa will be a better place and will be able to reinvent the wheel. We will be able to feed ourselves. We will be able to have a conference where we quote what prominent Africans have done and not quote Socrates, Barbara Stan, Alexandra, Thomas Jefferson, and so on and so forth. It is only when we come together, it is only when we show the true meaning of patriotism, not only to our countries, but to the African continent, then things will begin to change, we'll begin to reinvent the wheel.
Okay. Good. I want to quickly take you through something you said, and I totally agree with you. And I hope, just as you hope, that one day we will be in a conference and our references will be will not be Thomas Jefferson, will not be the leaders, the European leaders of the past. But the good thing is, in this generation, I don't see our people quoting much of European leaders. Our people are beginning to understand the need to embrace our own leaders. I bet to say here, there's no leader that is perfect. No leader is perfect. All of our leaders have their faults and their weaknesses, just as the leaders in Europe and America and the rest. But one of the things I have learned that the Europeans and Americans did very well before the advent of this social media and everything, where you really cannot hide much now, is there's this great romanticization of their leaders, where the good parts of leaders are projected on us, and we tend to worship them because we know all about their good parts. But for us, the negative parts of our leaders are blown to us. We can see their negatives, but people don't magnify their positives. It's time that we also, as Africans, learn to focus on the positives of our leaders. As much as we want to point out what's negative about them, what they're not doing good, it's also important that we focus and talk about what they're doing rightly. But I want to quickly go on to something that you mentioned. In Ghana, you said one street, one industry.
One district, one district.
That is going to change Ghana in the next 10, 20 years.
Yes,
That's
sir.
going to be massive. It's going to be a massive change. But going back to something that before we begin to round up, in my country, in many countries across Africa, it is not one street, it is not one district. It is one street, one neighborhood, one church, one neighborhood, one mosque, one neighborhood, one church, one neighborhood, one mosque. And I have often argued, listen, I'm a person of faith. I take my belief in God very importantly. I do not de-emphasize the impact, the place, and the efficacy of God and grace and mercy in our lives. But I want to say that one street, one church, one street, one mosque, as is obtainable in Africa, I do not believe it is going to change and transform Africa. I do not believe in that. So I want to get your thoughts on that, sir.
At first, I want to tell you, and you know, I profess the Christian faith. I so much profess the Christian faith. I so much believe in the oneness of God as the creator of heavens and the earth. But do you know what I don't believe?
What?
Hmm?
What
That
is it?
God is not a Christian. God is not a Muslim. God is not a Buddhist. God doesn't belong to Buddhism, to Hinduism. God is too big to be confined to one religion. God listens when the faithful Muslim prays. He answers when the fervent Christian prays. God, in fact, Christianity and Islam, they are the youngest religions. Other religions have existed before Christianity, more than 5,000 years ago. But in Africa, just as the white man came, our pastors are also here now in Africa, not for the purpose of divinity, but to enrich themselves, to exploit people. Because I used to tell people, friends around me, that what the AI technology should do, fasting and prayer will not do it.
I totally agree with you on that.
Fasting and prayer cannot do it. What unity of purpose should do for the progress of African community, prayer and fasting cannot do it.
I totally agree with you on that.
Prayer and fasting cannot do anything to our economy.
I agree with you on that.
So I am such person who believes, for me, I admire Paul Kagame. There was a time he closed more than 600 churches. He said because the pastors were playing with people's emotions. Like the magic bullet theory I read in communication. There was this group of people who wanted to test the power of the media. They brought in what they call the magic bullet theory, how people react to the magic bullet theory. And they brought in fake news. Before you realize, many people went to action. Many people went to action. The magic bullet theory, it is now being used by religious leaders. The Africa that we want will never be achieved through prayer and fasting, through many churches. There is this religion, I know you must have heard. Is it Mahabarala? Mahabarala.
I think I heard of that before.
Do you know what they say?
What?
When they had people speak about the Bible and the Quran, they said anybody that has not read Mahabharata, you have not read anything. So that is how religion is to us and how we have embraced it. I have seen people not talk because of Muslim and Christians mentality, how the world is going bazaar, not only in Africa. I must tell you how the world is going bazaar. Look at what is happening in Gaza. Look at what is happening in Israel and Palestine. Prayer and fasting could not solve what is happening in those countries, except we come together, we reason as a people how we can develop our educational system in Africa, how we can feed ourselves, how we can trade among ourselves. Prayer and fasting cannot do it. They cannot.
That
That mentality that the white man, they brought it. They brought education. They told us education is better than silver and gold, but they were after our silver and gold.
mm-hmm.
They
Mm-hmm.
left us with that. And it continues. When religion started, especially Christianity, when religion started in Rome, the Romans, they have to call the English people to help them because no man is an island, no man does anything in silo. They call them to come together. And the English people, what they did, they made religion politics. Look at what happened to the king who wanted a second wife, right? The division in the world, how the Anglican church came, how the Methodist church came, 7 days Adventists. When you study all those things, you will see In fact, I am of the belief that religion has caused more harm to society than civil war.
You know, I I am somebody who that, but if you believe in God, I want to see the impact of your belief in the personal transformation of your character. The temerity of whatever you believe and practice is revealed in its ability to transform you and make you a better person. Now, I personally believe that in Africa, if we can focus more on such ideas of investing in our economic transformation policies, education policies, and all of those things, I believe that we would do a lot better than we have done when we are with all that we have invested in religion. I also believe, I don't know how this is going to sink in with people. A day with a good leader, a day, let me say a year with a very good leader is 10 times, 10 times or 100 times better than what we will have under most of our religious leaders for 30 years.
Oh,
A year with a good leader who works out the policies that will favor, that will work out things is better, might be better than what we have had with all the years of our religious leader. I personally believe that I have faith in God. I practice my faith in God completely. I do not take lightly my time of prayers. I engage in fasting and prayers, but I do not allow them to trump what I need to do as a human being. And I think it's time for Africa to learn that God will not do what we ought to do. God will not step out from heaven to fix our problems. We need to learn how to work to fix our problems instead of always running to prayers and fastings. So I want to take your last note as we are already out of our time and ask you something. You're a very busy person. On a lighter note, I want to ask you two questions. What are your hopes for Africa, and what are your simple tips to getting a very good rest after your whole busy day? Two questions. What are your hopes for the African continent, and what are your simple tips for getting a good rest after a whole busy day?
the with technological advancement, the prophecy of Marshall McLuhan, who in the 1980s said there will come a time when the world will be a global village.
Mm-hmm.
And that is what we are doing now.
Yes.
You are at the comfort of your place in Izmir. I am here in Ankara. Viewers in Africa, America, regardless of space and time, we have
Mm-hmm.
all converged to have this conversation. So my hope for Africa is that as conversation of this nature continues, we'll be able to identify, to tell the younger generation that Africa, if we are to stand tall, we need to come together, we need to trade together, we need to educate ourselves here. But even more so, we need to be sincere to our individual and collective consciences.
Yes.
It is only through which we may have the Africa that we want for our children's children. I was saying a time ago, presently, the most precious gift I have are my children. But tomorrow, the most precious gift I may have are my grandchildren. And it continues in that vein.
Mm-hmm.
So our treasury is our children's children to have a better life than we have.
Mm-hmm.
To make this happen for them, Let us embrace the spirit. Let us come together. Let us read from the slate of Kwame Nkrumah, who
Mhm.
said, Africa, let us have one single economy. Africa, let us have one single city. Africa, let us trade within ourselves at first. But I must tell you finally, let me tell this platform. In all of what we have said about Africa and this, Africa and that, it is one country that should lead Africa to this transformation. This country should be a reformer, and that is the Federal Republic of Nigeria, I must tell you.
I totally agree with you also.
The Federal Republic of Nigeria has the human capacity, that has the requisite population. The Federal Republic of Nigeria, she has the requisite resources to drive Africa to an enviable continent as we want it. I used to tell people, when Nigeria sneezes, Africa catches cold. When Nigeria sneezes, Africa catches cold. When we go for ECOWAS, when we go for African Union, the voice of Nigeria is big.
Hmm.
For one purpose, human resource. There is no country in Africa that is resourceful in the human nature as Nigeria. So let Nigerians take the lead. Do you know why the headquarters for ECOWAS is in Nigeria? We lean on them. Even African Union, they look up to Nigeria. What is happening in Nigeria, big brother? There are countries as per infrastructure that are developed as per infrastructure more than Nigeria. But there is no country in Africa as per population index and human capacity that is as beautiful, magnificent as Nigeria. So let
Hmm.
us call our brothers from the coast of Nigeria, the coast of Sierra Leone, Ghana, Ivory Coast, to Djibouti, to Algeria, to Tanzania, to Kenya, to Morocco. Let us come together, not for ourselves, but for our children, even more so our children's children. Then we will all have the Africa that we want. Even if it is not in our days, even if it is not in our era, but our souls will be spirited, will be lit up on that day when we see trade volume between Sierra Leone and Ghana increases. Trade volume between Ivory Coast and South Africa increases. Inter-university exchange of knowledge. Let us go to Pistoria. Let us go to Mombasa. Let us go to Zanzibar. Let us make education a crusade. Let us make agriculture a priority. Let us be unified for the common African agenda. You know, I told somebody that it is good for us Africans to listen to the IMF. Fiscal discipline, this and that, this and that. The IMF was created before the establishment of our independence. They have set their standards, what they want. There was a need for the IMF, and we have been forced to
To
go
fit
into it
into that need without
without
considering our own need.
knowing, without knowing why was this thing created. Let us rely on the African Development Bank. Let the African Development Bank foster the development, the need, and the help that is needed for the sustenance of the economies in Africa. Let our local banks be magnanimous on interest rates. Let our universities Concentrate on courses that are fit for purpose. How in this generation can I be studying the literature that happened 1900, 1845? Let us do courses. Let us concentrate to AI technology because that is now a way to go. If we are not careful, in 30 years, there will be no job for mankind. The AI will take all our jobs. Let us concentrate. How can tackle it? I think there is need for us to be engaging ourselves more frequently. Let us open up our space. Let us call on our brothers. Let us come and reason together for the common African purpose. Thank you very much, my brother, for this platform. Thank you and God bless you.
Thank you so much. You didn't answer the other part of I was asking after all the bustles and hustlings and what's not of your work, how do you take out time to rest, to refresh your mind? How do you do that? Just quickly as I round up.
Even as I'm a reformer, I'm a politician, I am a motivational speaker, I am a writer, but I make time for football.
Oh,
I make time for football. I make time for club. Many a time I don't have time for myself because I have told myself I have taken the path of writing. I'm a writer. I studied communications at an advanced stage. So for you to be well read, for you to write well, you must be well read. So sometimes I read a lot of book.
hmm,
I have deviated my mind from reading many European books. Now I'm reading African books. I have gone to the drawing board. I am reading the independence of African countries.
good.
I make time for myself. I make time for family. I make time for enjoyment. I party a lot.
Oh.
I party a lot. And even more harder.
Anyway, it's been nice having this conversation with you. You do not know. It's been a very interesting conversation. I have a couple of comments all from Facebook and many people agreeing with you on on most of the things you have said. So I hope, just as you hope, that African leaders and emerging leaders can work together and align together in your words to make Africa a better place. So that when all of us as Africans, when we go somewhere, people will consider us as teammates, equal partners, and then we can see a better Africa in a better relationship and better light with other countries. It's been a wonderful conversation with you. Thank you so much, sir. I appreciate. Just before everybody, I've been talking with Mr. Lamin Sherrif of the Sierra Leonean Embassy. He has really exploded our mind with so much. I told you at the beginning, he's a very, very, very knowledgeable person, and not just that he's a knowledgeable person. He makes out time for himself to enjoy the life that God has given him. God has given him and blessed him with. So, from me and from everyone that's been watching, I want to say thank you so much for participating today. I hope that soon we'll bring you back to this conversation because I think there's so much that we have to still talk about. So thank you and have a wonderful weekend, please, sir. Goodbye, sir.